Hare Gopika Ballabha Girivarahari Gopika Ballabha Girivarahari
Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamunatira
Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopika Ballabha Girivarahari Gopika Ballabha Girivarahari Yashodananda Vajanarandana Yashodananda Vajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
So we're studying Canto 3, Chapter 25, text number 26. Okay. Okay. Would you like to lead the class? Maharaj said that maybe you'd like to do it. Yeah.
Bhaktya Puman Jata Viraga Andriyad Jishta Shutan Mad Rachananu Chintaya Chittasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto Yatishate Rijubir Yoga Margai Bhaktya Pumanjata Viraga Andriyan Jishta Shutan Madratana Chintaya Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto Yati Shatire Jubir Yoga Margai Bhaktya Pumanjata Viraga Indriyan Jishta Shutan Madratana Chintaya Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto Yati Shatire Jubir Yoga Margai Bhaktya Pumanjata Viraga Indriyan Jishta Shutan Madhurachana Chintaya Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto Yati Shatire Jubir Yoga Margai
Second. Okay, ready? 1 second.
Let's start.
Ready.
Pumanjata viraga indriyat
Bhaktya Pumanjata Viraga Andriyar
Stashutan Madrachananu Chintaya
Krishna Shutan Madachananu Chintaya
Shitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto
Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto
Yatishyate Rijabir Yoga Margai
Yatishyate Rejabir Yoga Margai
Bhaktya Pumhanjata Viragya Haindriyad Drishta Shrutan Marachunanu Chintaya
Sutan Madrachananu Chintaya
Chitasya Yato Grahanhe Yoga Yukto
Siyato Grahane Yoga Yukto
Yatishyate Ruchubir Yoga Margai
Yatishyate Rejabir Yoga Margai
Rijivir
Pumanjata Viraga Drishta Shrutan Mahajananu Chintaya Chitasyato Grahane Yoga Yukto Yatishate Rajabir Yoga Margai Bhaktya Pumanjata Viraga
Krishna Shutanma Rachananu Chintaya
Jishta Shutan Madhurachana Chintaya
Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto
Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto
Yatishyate Rajabir Yoga Margai
Yatishyate Jubir Yoga Margai
Bhaktya Pumandata Viraga Andriyad
Bhaktya Pumanjata Viraga Indriyan
Hista Shrutan Madrachanan Chintaya
Jishta Shutan Madhurachana Chintaya
Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto
Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto
Yatishyate Rijabir Yoga Margai
Yatishyate Jubir Yoga Margai
Bhaktya pumanjata viraga indriya
Pumanjata Viraga Indriya
Drishta shrutanmad rachananuchintaya
Shashutanma Rachananu Chintaya
Chittasya yato grahane yoga yukto
Chetasya
Yatishyate rajubir yoga margaye
Tistate
Bhaktya pumanjata viraga andriya Drishta shrutanmad rachananuchintaya Chitasya yato grahane yoga yukto Yatishyate rajubhir yoga margaye
Bhaktya pumanjata viraga indriya Drishta shritanma rachananu Chitasya yato grahane yoga yukto Yatishyate rijubir yoga margahi
Bhaktya pumanjata viraga indriyat Drishta shrutan madrachananu chintaya Chittasya yato grahane yoga yukto Yatishyate rujibir yoga margai
Bhaktya by devotional service. Puman, a person. Jataviragaha, having developed distaste. Aindriyat, for sense gratification. Drishta, seen in this world. Shrutat, heard in the next world. Matrachana, my activities of creation and so on. Anuchintaya, by constantly thinking about. Chitasya, of the mind. Yataha, engaged. Grahane, in the control. Yoga yuktaha, situated in devotional service. Yatishyate, will endeavor. Rijubhi, easy. Yoga margai, by the processes of mystic power. Right. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. Purport. In all scriptures, people are encouraged to act in a pious way so that they can enjoy sense gratification not only in this life, but also in the next. For example, one is promised promotion to the heavenly kingdom of higher planets by pious fruitive activities. But a devotee, in the association of devotees, prefers to contemplate the activities of the Lord. how he has created this universe, how he is maintaining it, how the creation dissolves, and how in the spiritual kingdom the Lord's pastimes are going on. There are full literatures describing these activities of the Lord, especially Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Samhita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. The sincere devotee who associates with devotees gets the opportunity to hear and contemplate this subject of the pastimes of the Lord, and the result is that he feels distaste for so-called happiness in this or that world, in heaven, or on other planets. The devotees are simply interested in being transferred to the personal association of the Lord. They have no more attraction for temporary so-called happiness. That is the position of one who is yoga yukta. One who is fixed in mystic power is not disturbed by the allurements of this world or that world. He is interested in the matters of spiritual understanding or the spiritual situation. This sublime situation is very easily attained by the easiest process, bhakti yoga. Rijubir yoga margai, a very suitable word used here, is rijubihi, or quote-unquote very easy. There are different processes of yoga marg, attaining yoga perfection, but this process, devotional service to the Lord, is the easiest. Not only is it the easiest process, but the result is sublime. Everyone, therefore, should try to take this process of Krishna consciousness and reach the highest perfection of life. Om Ganat Mandasya Ganam Shalakya Chakshumi Tamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this section is describing, of course, the glories of devotional service. And Devahuti had inquired from Kardama Muni about the way to become freed from material attachment. Or not from Kardama Muni, sorry, Kapila Muni, thank you. Kardama Muni had left, and now she's inquiring from Kapila Muni. And she asked about which of the yoga processes will get me to the perfection the quickest. And so Kapila Muni's described how to purify the mind, how to gain a taste for self-realization, the importance of association with a sadhu, and he enumerates the qualities of a sadhu by whose association we can become free from the attachment to the material activities. And then yesterday we heard how that association of devotees, the hearing and chanting of so Krishna Katha, becomes very pleasing and satisfying to two things, the heart and the ear. Generally, when we're conditioned by the material energy, we prefer to listen to material things, and our heart is not satisfied. It's always hankering for something, either to gain something or to get rid of something, or it's lamenting a loss of something. And those tendencies stop us from wanting to go to Krishna, because we get caught up in those that internal state. But in that association, that purification happens, and we become attracted and we become satisfied by hearing Krishna Katha. And that allows us, in the last verse it says, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and then one becomes freed, becomes a little fixed in the attraction, and then real devotion and devotional service begin. So it's a very similar section to the first canto, second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, where it describes how the knot is pierced in the heart and one becomes free from the material contamination and begins to take pleasure in transcendental activities. So here particularly, now Kapila Muni is describing that this first word caught my attention because he says, thus consciously engaged in devotional service. So my understanding, and Marge, please correct or supplement if I'm wrong, or if anyone else has an understanding, but it seems like Kapila Muni's given this this process, and he ends up with that statement, then real devotion and devotional service begin. So it seems like after a particular transformation or transition in the path of practicing, there's a certain quality to the devotional service that happens. And so this aspect of consciously engaged in devotional service, I was understanding as being, yes, just that by that process of purification, we're more fully present in our devotional service. Like when we're chanting, or when we're performing worship for the deities, or when we're reading the literatures, our mind or our consciousness isn't really divided between, like, I'm thinking of my to-do list and I'm doing my japa, or I'm meditating on like what else I have to do for the day and I'm doing my kirtan, or I'm troubled by something. So even when I'm worshiping the deity, I'm thinking about how, I may be praying also, like, Gornitai, how do I solve this? So I was feeling that it seems that the purifications happen where we're just fully, the consciousness is fully engaged in devotional service. Marriage, yeah.
In the practice.
1 second, Marge.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
The devotional service can also be divided into the practice sadhana bhakti, where one is performing his duties under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, and there may not be necessarily any real attraction, but he understands philosophically that this is the right thing to do. So he's engaged in that. And then as he reaches higher stage, as Srila Rupa Goswami describes, he comes to the level of ruchi. Ruchi means taste. And the distinction there is that instead of doing his duties because he's been ordered to do them, but now he's doing the duties in addition to because he knows they should be done, but because he really enjoys them, he has a taste for them. And the example that Prabhupada often gives is, in the beginning he doesn't necessarily have a taste for getting up early, so early in the morning. But after some time he does. He likes getting up early in the morning. He likes chanting. He likes fasting on the Ekadashis. He likes all the activities of devotional service. They're appealing to him. So he's gotten the taste. And that taste goes further, becomes attraction, and finally it becomes bhava, or ecstasy, and finally prema. The ultimate perfection is love of Krishna. So this whole process of bhakti yoga is to increase our love for Krishna, to increase our love for God. That's what it's all about. In the material world, everything is meant for trying to increase the sense gratification of the person who's acting. And that's a failed, for sure a failed program, because sense gratification doesn't satisfy the soul in any way, shape, or form. You can try sense gratification this way on the heavenly planets, or under the water, in the fish species, or in the earth, but there's no pleasure there for the soul, because the soul can only be satisfied when he's engaged in loving activities that are centered around pleasing Krishna. Krishna is the supreme lovable object. He's the reservoir of all pleasure. And we simply cannot be satisfied with anything else. And some of us realize this at a certain point in our attempts in this lifetime, for example, that I'm trying to get pleasure, but it's not working, it's not coming as much as I would like. There's a little bit of pleasure. Vidyapati, the poet, has described on the desert there may be a drop of water. If someone drops a drop of water when you're on the desert, it doesn't give you any relief. It's too hot. So that's material pleasure. We actually want a whole ocean of pleasure, but we're getting only a drop of water, and we're not satisfied. And so, frustrated, we continually go on trying again and again in different ways to get pleasure, but it doesn't work. But Bhakti Yoga works very easily. Rajabi, that word is used. It's very easily performed. Sukham kartamavayam. Just by engaging in devotional service, even in the beginning, it may be somewhat, sometimes there's a criticism that it's a mechanical or maybe just kind of being done, not necessarily with any love or anything, but just because I'm supposed to, in a rote way, learn this and understand it and repeat it, and then I'll make some progress. But that's also pleasurable, because those activities of chanting the names of God, or the glories of the Lord, or the glories of the devotees, or any of these pastimes, they're blissful and happy also, as well as being fulfilling and purifying. They have all the other pleasures come along gradually. And if there's any delay, then Rupa Goswami tells us to go on. Utsahan nishayat dharyat tatat karma pavartana. Sangatyagat satovade shadvir bhakti urvinash. CJT. That just go on with faith and enthusiasm, determination. I'm going to continue with this process, no matter how difficult it is or how long it takes. There's no question of worrying about how long it takes. You have unlimited time available, but because time is so valuable, it's a good idea to give it our best effort. In this life, there was a saying, there was a kind of a slogan. They were selling some hair coloring when I was young. They said,
Any comments or questions so far?
So I was just wondering, what is devotional service, like everything in devotional service, like hearing, chanting, remembering, and all the other things in devotional service, or is it just the basic three things: hearing, chanting, and remembering mostly?
All the processes, all 9 are described as devotional service, right? Prahlad Maharaj describes those. The first 3, or particularly Shravanam and Kirtanam, are just the basis. Like, without those, how do we gain? Just without those 2 processes, how can we engage in any other process? And if we look at what all the devotees do, Bhagavatam, both here, he's talking, or in that previous verse, he's talking about finding pleasure in hearing and chanting about the Lord. We look at the 6 Goswamis, that's what they do. That's what Prahlad Maharaj does. That's what Dhruv Maharaj does. So those are, and anyone can engage in those. Archa Vigraha, like, so you need some qualification for that. To actually surrender oneself, Atmanivedam, is a little bit difficult sometimes. So all the processes are devotional service, but the Shravanam and Kirtanam are particularly fundamental to our advancement. Makes sense? And it's one of the ways that, as Maharaj was pointing out, and Prabhupada saying here, that Rijubir Yoga Margai, that's one reason that the process is also considered easy and sublime, because even a child can hear, even a child can chant. The animals can hear, they can't necessarily chant all the time, but it's such a simple process. That way that therefore everyone can engage in devotional service. Right? We don't have to have necessarily a huge qualification. We don't have to, twist ourselves into a pretzel or fast for years on end to attain some kind of mystic perfection. Just opening the ears and letting the transcendental sound vibration come into the heart. And whatever has come into the heart, we have the opportunity to share that with others in the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that, giving Krishna consciousness. Then that's how we engage in devotional service. Yeah. If you haven't meditated, one interesting meditation is to think about the other processes that are available for, or what people offer sometimes as like a yoga process, and that can really help us appreciate the Sankirtan movement all the more. To see, like, I used to teach yoga, like Ashtanga yoga. And then sometimes I'll still go back to a class just to keep the body fit a little bit for some services I have that require that. But then I see that there's teachers and they've spent their entire life, they've performed this sadhana, and yet they still don't actually understand who that ultimate goal is, or what the ultimate goal of their yoga process is. So like Maharaj was saying, Krishna has unlimited patience, so we can spend as many lives as we need to, but we may have already spent so many lives trying some other process and we still haven't understood, or it's not so easy to understand what the ultimate purpose of that process is. But as soon as you walk into the temple, Prabhupada's just made it very clear. We're here, part and parcel of Krishna, and we're here to serve him. And that will take us to the perfection of life. So it's really... although sometimes when we join, it's like we've heard it so many times, we may not realize how what a gem the philosophy is. But you probably have more, like when you go out on Sankirtan, you probably see, right, as you meet different people and you think about what are they doing with their life and how are they, what are they trying to achieve, and then see like how long, how much time, how much energy they're investing in going for those achievements. And yet with a little intelligence, by the devotee's mercy, we can see that, that path isn't really going to take them, like Maharaj was saying, it's not really going to take us to a place where we're satisfied or where we're happy. But by some mercy, we've come to that path, and by the mercy of the devotees, then we see that, and we can feel it ourselves, that yes, coming and chanting all morning long, like, 4:30 in the morning till 8:30, it's already 4 hours. If somebody's gone to work for 4 hours and we have been in the temple for 4 hours, we're still smiling and we may be a little tired depending on the day, but our state of consciousness is so much brighter than if we're trying to achieve some other goal and we've spent those 4 hours in a different way. So it's a nice contemplation to sometimes when we go out to see that, at least I've had that experience a few times. I'm like, it's really valuable to have the Bhagavad Gita and have Prabhupada's explanations and to be engaged in devotional service, because so much time to try to achieve anything else in the world. There. Any other comments, questions, realizations?
I just wanted to, in this purport and also in the translation, Prabhupada mentioned it. It seemed like almost redundant way. He said, performing devotional service in the association of devotees. There was sentence after sentence, he just re-clarified both of those things. So I was just wondering if you could speak about the importance of devotee association, or a little bit of tips for us how to associate with devotees.
Well, we can definitely see the so much sweetness comes when we associate with the devotees. Like, if I sit on my own and do kirtan, it can still be nice, but then when you have an entire group of devotees, like really focused and like, their sadhana is strong and you do kirtan, you glorification together, the bliss goes up like 100,000 times. And we see even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't practice alone on his own. He always had his personal associates with him, because it's good for us to remember that it's a personal movement. So it's nice to have personalities, people around, and that sweetness comes out in that association. As practitioners, I know for myself, without the association of devotees, I would never have understood Krishna consciousness very well. If I had tried to practice on my own, just like reading, and then even if I had tried chanting, so many like realizations or that sense of experience of the joy of Krishna consciousness has come only from association of devotees. And that's on the positive side. On the other side that we may get frustrated with sometimes is the conflict that we may run into in association. But even that actually becomes beneficial for our devotional service, because it helps us see where our anarthas are and where we need to improve to be a better devotee. Like we give up the four regulative principles, but there's subtle forms of those. Like in ahimsa, we may stop eating meat, but we may still carry violence in the way we treat other people or in the way we treat the objects that are serving us. That's why, like, one of the first things we learn in the temple is not to kick. Don't use our foot to kick materials around. Don't kick the mridanga. Don't kick or don't move anything with our feet. It's actually a very disrespectful way. It's a violent way to treat the paraphernalia that we're with. Even my Guru Maharaj would go as far as like our clothing. He's like, even the clothes that you take off that are dirty, he's like, don't just drop them in a pile. Fold them nicely, keep them gently, because they're rendering you service. So you should take care of them properly. So right to that, as with the devotee, like, I know I would never have imagined that in my entire life. Even if I had chanted for like my whole life until somebody hadn't pointed it out to me, I would never have like come to that realization. So it may feel rough at sometimes, but the diamond can only become sparkly with that. It needs a little force to shine up. So those have been some of my experiences with the importance of association, aside from, as you said, Prabhupada points it out so many times. I mean, that's the whole purpose that he said he established the Society for Krishna Consciousness, so that the living entities can come together and become Krishna conscious. He knows it's not easy on one's own, and that it's much more pleasurable in the association of devotees also. Any insights you'd like to add from your experience?
Thank you for your comments. The point that you made about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he always having some people to share the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness, that really resonated with me. That even in his kind of most personal dealings with Krishna internally and things, then he had some associates that he did let close to kind of, keep him grounded, or, to share with, to relish the glorification of Krishna. So it reminded me of this verse, the devotees are always sharing amongst themselves about Krishna Katha. And we're striving for that. We're trying to build a culture which is strictly based on Krishna's remembrance and Krishna's glorification. And we do have services which are variegated, but we should, and there's so many details to get into, the design and the architecture and the production of prasadam and the cooking techniques and this and that and so many various details. But Yeah, so we're trying to limit prajalpa, things that are distracting from our devotional service, and just focus on Krishna Kirtan, Krishna's holy name. And one thing that I've been thinking about recently is that devotee association isn't exactly like, sometimes it feels this way, that you always have to be on guard because you're always being attacked or judged or corrected or instructed. And that's actually a little bit traumatic for some of us to be in that environment. But as we increase the, I guess our vulnerability with devotees, and we take the principle lamb at home and a lion on the chase. So we generally try to be non-assertive with the devotees and tolerant, and on the chase means when we're preaching the Siddhanta of this Bhakti Siddhanta, then we do so with ferocity. So I've been thinking about that actually they go together. If we vigorously preach the Siddhanta and practice it, then it actually brings that sweetness of relationships. And then we stop kind of always trying to correct our friends and our other associates. So these are some of the things I've been trying to meditate on and trying to achieve in the community.
Very nice. Yeah, it's I like how you're pointing out the as devotees we deal externally in a particular way. Even then, we understand that we preach the Siddhanta very strongly. Yet what draws people in is also the love. If you like in the Lilamrita, right, in the early days, the devotees had the sense of we're a family. They felt like I have a place where I belong. And they also had the love from Prabhupada, that, like this transcendental love that just like smile from him or something like that was so enlivening to them, something that they had been yearning for their entire life. And just like in a family, the father or the leaders, they have the responsibility both to give the love and to give the direction. So, leadership in any community has that challenge of how to be loving, make sure that the devotees feel cared for, they're satisfied, like they there's plenty of prasadam, they're getting like the association they need, they're getting encouragement, they're getting recognition, and at the same time to be able to keep an eye on where are we needing to up our game so that devotees and for someone who takes on that leadership challenge, it's also a big growth process for those devotees because it's a calling or it's an opportunity to become even more mature in our understanding of Krishna consciousness and in understanding in understanding how to create that family atmosphere. And just like parents have to, I have 3 sisters, so my parents had to deal with 4 kids and, they always told us we were pretty well behaved, but still I remember conflicts with my sisters growing up. So my mom and dad had to iron out those conflicts, teach us right from wrong, how to behave with, elders, how to behave at home. So many things are there to create that culture of Krishna consciousness. And it's really nice that you have that vision and that desire to create that community here. It's very powerful and very attractive when and there's learnings. We our community in Minneapolis has gone through, various ups and downs and people feeling hurt and then learning I just needed to mature from that and coming back into devotional service more softer in one's heart, more clear on the understanding, more willing also to take a stand. Everybody's coming from such different directions that it can be a little confusing how to get a that's a really wonderful vision that's there. And I think one aspect that is also the in the 6 loving exchanges, right? that are given in the Nectar of Instruction, that those are being encouraged and engaged in, particularly in the devotee community, that devotees are having opportunity to take and receive prasadam, take and receive gifts from each other. And then the one that sometimes devotees struggle with more is the revealing the mind and confidence. Like, do I have a friend in the devotee community that I can share my fears or my struggles with very openly and not feel judged? And at the same time, do I have some support to continue to grow, or some space to continue to grow in my Krishna consciousness journey? And that's, like you said, many details involved in those things. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And if I may say one thing that I wanted to appreciate about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like you said, he always had some devotees, the association with him. We're going from there. And I was thinking that when you see the pastimes with Swarup Damodar, one of the benefits, if you could say, or one of the services that he performed for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right, was that he could understand the mood of Mahaprabhu, and then he would recite verses in order to create a more intense experience for the Lord. And so that's something that devotees do. I'm sure you can see, like when you've done kirtan and harinam with the same group of devotees for a long time, like you don't have to look at them to know when the tune is going to change, or when the energy is just going to like snap, when that transcendental like bliss just starts to come and you get in this flow, and all of a sudden like everybody's just totally blissed out, right? Like that comes, it's harder to do that with a group of like if you've never like sung kirtan with these people, or you don't have so much of like a connection, it can be harder to like enter into that bliss. But when you have like a bond and everybody's like, you know, feeling comfortable, but then also, and everybody understands like, wow, these are such beautiful devotees to be with, then you start a kirtan and it's like out of this world, like super phenomenal, because you just can enter into that flow together. And it's not to say that others can't experience if they're not connected, but when that core group has that connection, it's really, a very powerful experience. And so just wanted to, you made me remember that one when you mentioned it again. Any other comments, questions?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for sharing your realizations on this topic of devotional service and devotee association. I actually had almost just exact comment as Prabhu about this verse and speaking about the association of devotees. And I was thinking of Mahaprabhu and how it does seem that he does like have an inner circle and then outer circles. You know, some devotees are closer and not. And so I was going to ask, is that something healthy that we can develop in our own lives associating with devotees? Like, is it healthy for us to have those kinds of like, okay, this is my inner circles where there are devotees that I can see that I can share my heart and I'm not being judged and I'm safe here. And then still also have nice friendships with those that we might not be able to share in that way. Is that a healthy way of thinking? Is that practical? And then, like also I ask this because, you know, we often hear that, you know, devotee or transcendentalist or yogi, or it's worded a little different in Gita also, that they're friendly to every living being. And so can you maybe elaborate on that also?
So in terms of association, definitely in Gita, Prabhupada clarifies one thing there. Even though the sadhu sees everyone on the same level, it doesn't mean that he's going to go embrace a tiger. Right? So he understands that the tiger is a spirit soul, but he still will interact according to the appropriate, like what's appropriate in the situation. So it's like, that's one principle to remember. In terms of the devotee association, one is it will be natural that there will be some devotees that we can confide in and are just closer to us. That's 100% natural. And because Nectar of Instruction tells us that we need to have that opportunity to reveal our mind in confidence and to inquire confidentially, it is important that we have those relationships in the devotee community. Because of the nature of those relationships, it's not expected that we have that deep of a relationship with every single person. It's not actually really possible. But if you have 2 or 3 close devotees, particularly at least one senior devotee, and if you have a peer that you can also express your mind with, and then at some point also a junior that you become the senior to, eventually having all 3 aspects builds it's a healthy flow, because you don't get stagnated that I don't have anything to give. And like if it's only in relationship with seniors and you never take the opportunity to kind of mentor or be a friend to someone else, it's a little lopsided. Or if you're always trying, like sometimes leaders end up in the position that they're always giving and they don't remember to nourish themselves with peers or to continue to take some senior association. So then you can get drained out, that I've been giving, and we may not see it in the first 5 years. It may show up in the 10th year or the 11th year, or the 20th year, if we haven't been aware that I'm not getting nourished. Like I haven't taken care of my peer relationships, or I haven't continued to associate with seniors who can continue to guide me and help me deepen my spiritual process. So it's important to see that those 3 are happening. And just because of the nature, while we're friendly with all the devotees, there are also nuances in that process as well. Like, how widely are we defining the community? We can go like the entire Vaishnava community, even within the Vaishnava community. Okay, we're associating in the Gaudiya tradition. So then how do we deal when we meet people from the Sri Vaishnava tradition or from the Vallabha Sampradaya? Even within ISKCON particularly, sometimes, okay, I have my Guru Maharaj, you have your Guru Maharaj. Sometimes that can be a conflicting point, and we need to learn how do we respect all the spiritual masters. At the same time, we understand that I have my personal spiritual master, and my growth is to follow his instructions. So that's not always an easy thing. It's like, wait, what does that look like? What does this mean? Like, can I pay obeisances? Can I offer an arti? Like, what? So we can have a lot of questions in that space, and that's a growth space. And then within a temple community, also, what is my relationship with the others? Then we have managerial responsibilities. We have the friend community. And then you have